Hi, welcome to Agsolutely Fabulous. My name is Gillian Fennell, also known as Station Mum 101. I love everything about agriculture, especially the people and especially communicating about what makes Australian ag so special.
And I'm Katja Williams, a beef, cattle and cropping farmer, and I love all things ag, and I'm also known as the ultimate farm wife. Together, we are Agsolutely Fabulous, and we are talking all things agriculture beyond the headlines.
And we can't wait to give our opinion to you, and we hope you enjoy it.
So let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of Agsolutely Fabulous. We are so glad that you are here. Big shout out to Gillian for co-hosting the Agsolutely Fabulous podcast with me for 2 years now. It is our birthday and we nearly missed it.
Hooray! Happy birthday to us. We haven't gone completely mad yet. We're still managing it. Slightly.
Slightly. Thank you for everyone who has joined us along the way, whether you have been here from the very first episode or whether you are brand new tuning into our podcast. Gillian and I are bringing you all things agriculture beyond the headlines and closing the urban-rural divide. We love having our ag fabs, our lovely listeners here along the journey with us. And remember, you can send us in your articles, your journals, your reels, and your research papers, anything you want us to discuss, give our opinion on, and give a little bit more of a farming perspective. Gillian, 2 years, what do you think of that?
I think we're doing pretty well, to be honest. Do you know, it's really interesting. Over on LinkedIn, we get a lot of people trying to sell us shit. It's like, with all the episodes that you've released, have you considered a such and such podcasting system with AI bloody blah 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 blah, or you've now reached the peak amount of podcasts to be eligible for a one-on-one coaching session with such and such. And it's like, I have zero. Stop. Do not contact me on LinkedIn to sell me shit. That is the most absolute fastest way that I will not engage. Although I have to say, one guy did reach out to us, Carter, and offered us a free trial of his podcasting producer app, which is basically just listens to us talk in real time and then suggests questions that we can ask each other. And I said, look, looks really good, mate, but I don't think it's for us. Like, have you ever actually listened to one of our episodes? But at least he was polite enough to offer us a free trial first. So thank you very much. You're between hosting podcasts and writing books and doing public speaking, Katja. How have you found it?
I love podcasting as a medium, and I've really enjoyed, because I've worked out that I've probably started a podcast every 2 years, because the Ultimate Farm Wife was started in 2023, then Agsolutely Fabulous was the end of 2024, and the Polar podcast, which is coming up to the 3rd episode being dropped. By this time this one comes out, it might be the 4th episode coming out, and that was July 2026. So maybe I just like to collect projects, but I love the long format.
Do you know, if I was a bit organised, I could have launched our website on our birthday, but I'm not. I'm still working on it. But it's going to be really cool, because what the website's going to do, and this is the bit that I'm working on in the background. So if you're listening and you've seen some funny social posts pop up, this is part of it. Okay. So what will happen is Katja will upload the podcast to the RSS feed on Friday. Saturday morning, my little AI assistant downloads, transcribes the podcast, turns it into a blog post, posts it to the website, leaves it there for me to check before I actually hit publish. And it includes a direct link on the post page to the podcast so you can listen as well as read about it. And then as soon as I hit post, it automatically issues social posts that says this episode is about blah, 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 blah. And you'll listen to these people. And here's the links and everything else. So that is the fine tuning I'm doing. The podcast does look like a 6-year-old has designed it because, yes, technically I could get AI to build my website, but I wanted to make sure all the bits and blocks and everything worked together properly. So it's very simple. And that means it should be quick and easy to load, no matter your bandwidth, because there's no point in having all fancy animations and all that sort of stuff if they never load and they freeze halfway through. So I'm more worried about people being able to open the website, go and click the link and download the podcast or read the blog post as soon as possible. Don't want to worry about animations and sparkly things and all that sort of stuff. It's very, very bare bones, very basic, but I'm trying to get that automation thing sort of smoothed out, make sure it's running perfectly so it does everything, and I just have to read it and double check that nothing outrageous has happened, press go, and it should just go and do it automatically. So fingers crossed that will be happening soon-ish.
Looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. That sounds very, very clever.
Fingers crossed I can make it work properly.
Yes. We are 1 week out from the bull sale. I know that everyone's probably getting sick of hearing about it, but Wednesday, 26th of August in Dubbo, New South Wales at the Poledale Bull Sale Complex on property, we have our bull sale coming up. We have sent out catalogues. The digital one is up on the website, and I have also updated the YouTube channel, branding and banners, which is very exciting. So did you know, Gillian, that we were the first bull sale catalogue to have QR codes?
No, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool, actually. So you're early adopters of new technology.
Early adopters of new technology, which means when you look at the front cover of our bull sale catalogues, you can actually scan the QR code that takes it directly to the YouTube channel, and you can watch the bulls walking and moving while you're looking at their pedigrees and their photos and their comments, which Ned and his dad have written. And you've got all the information at your fingertips that you need.
I don't think people comprehend how much work it is putting together a bull catalogue. Like, I've never had to do it, and I will probably never do it because I'd rather die than muck around with stud pedigrees and all that sort of nonsense. Commercial beef producer all the way. But we do, like, the stud industry is an important part of what I do. Doesn't matter what breed it is. Like, we need people who are breeding really good animals, really fit for purpose, with pedigrees that you can trust and rely on, because otherwise you could be slipping any old Mickey bull in there. And it's the sheer volume, like photos. And before you take a photo of anything, you got to wash it and blow dry it and lead it around the countryside. And you got to make it stand up with your funny little stick. And you got to then you've got to put all those photos in a catalogue, and you have to have his pedigree in there, and you have to have his EBVs in there, and his scrotal circumference, and all this sort of stuff, and his vet check and everything. And that all has to be done by a certain point in time so you can send the catalogues out. And you've got to feed them and make them look beautiful. And it's just, it is the volume of work that goes into it is just incredible. I don't think many people appreciate just how much goes into creating a stud animal and then having an on-farm stud sale. It's ridiculous.
And that's why Ned and I do it and Gillian doesn't.
Because I'll be like, that's too much like hard work. There's got to be an easy way to make a living than muck around with that. And it also involves dealing with people a lot, which is not my core skill set. So someone's got to do it, just not me.
Absolutely. If you do want to know a little bit more about Poledale and what Ned and I do here, we have released a 5-part mini-series called the Poledale Podcast. So go to where you listen to your podcasts, type in the Poledale Podcast, and it will come up. I'm sure we've also shared some social tiles over on Agsolutely Fabulous about that podcast. But today we're actually going to be talking about a couple of different topics. So we've got the Dubbo Solar Recycling Hub proposal, the same sheep zero waste question from a young AgFab listener. We've got the Channel 7 scare tactics or reality, food storage insecurity, or is it a threat? And what was our last one? Should farmers have more rights to protect their property? 3.9 1,000 people said yes, absolutely, to the survey. So, Gillian, let's jump into it. Dubbo Solar Recycling Hub proposal. Did you have a look at that link?
I did have a little tiny look, and like we've talked about recycling and reharvesting the components of solar panels and those sorts of things on the show before, because we think it's a good idea, because waste not, want not sort of thing. There's a lot of rare earth minerals and metals and components that could be recycled in a solar panel, and rather than just dig a big hole and chuck them in the ground, it makes more sense to recycle those very they're going to become more scarce, those scarce resources. It just seems to me that your bit of New South Wales gets everyone else's rubbish. They wanted to build a massive rubbish dump. Was it at Parks? They wanted to ship all Sydney's rubbish to a great big dump at Parks, which is just down the road from you. And again, you've got to find where all the solar panels hang out in the first place and probably build your recycling hub there. But you also need to build it where the people are, because it's elements of it could be automated, but it's going to take a fair bit of manpower, and their people are going to need somewhere to live, and they're going to need schools for their kids to go to, and hospitals and roads and all those sorts of things. So yeah, putting these things in the regions because it's not on Sydney's doorstep or whatever sounds like a great plan. But unless you follow up these plans with investment in infrastructure and workforce, then they never become reality. Or if you do try to make them become reality, they'll fail. So you've got to set these projects up for success. And that's probably where we're not, like as a nation, we're not really good at doing that unless you're a mine. That's the only things we set up for success is basically things that are just going to come to an end one day. So yeah, it's a funny sort of way to invest your country's money, I think. So you live at Dubbo, Karcher. What do you think about it?
Do you know what? I cannot believe that we don't have more of these centres, considering our government has been pushing renewable energy for years. Most of these solar projects, the lifespan on their panels are 5 to 10 years. A lot of the farms are well into that already, and they're just talking about proposal for recycling centres. And what about where all the grave sites are already for the solar panels? What about the leaching? What about the potential contamination spills? They can put it down as a recycling centre, and that's very positive, and that sounds great. And you know what? It is great that they're going to be recycling them. But the environmental impact is something that I really want them to consider. Where they put it geographically needs to be very well considered. And it also needs to be a very timely project, because otherwise we're going to run into issues with panels sitting there and not being processed. I think if you're removing the panel and it's going to the centre and it's being broken down pretty well straight away, great. That's going to be the best outcome. But if it's going to sit there and they're going to have a backlog of stuff that's already breaking down, that's already not in great condition, or if they're some of the panels from the fire damage, because we know there's been solar farm fires, particularly in this area. So they're already damaged, they're already leaching, they're already not in great condition. If you do automate a system, I just don't think they're going to be able to break them down as efficiently or as cost effectively as they think they're going to. And then who pays for that? Like, is that the farms? Is that built into the companies that are already operating? Are they going to put that cost back on, selling it, or on the community, or is it going to be government funded? Like, I just can't see how at the moment this proposal is going to be sustainable and environmentally friendly at the moment. And again, it's proposed. Come on, guys, we should have been doing this and investing in this years ago.
And that's the frustrating thing. Yep, you want renewable energy. You know these things have a finite lifespan. So at the same time you're investing in the renewable energy technology, you also need to be investing in and developing the recycling or reuse of those components technology. And productive farmland is never the place to put these types of things. Because once a solar panel's compromised, like cracked and that sort of thing, as will happen when it's reached the end of its life and it's being recycled and transported, because it's not going to take the same care because it's end of life. So they're just going to, crack, ratchet strap it down really tight and it's going to get cracked. That's when leaching can and does occur. And so if you've got, I don't think, again, people don't understand the scale. Like people think, maybe like 5 or 10 solar panels. There will be tens of thousands of solar panels in stacks or in crates or however they're going to transport them, sitting around out on the flat, getting rained on, all of this sort of stuff. We've got some abandoned industrial sites, like South Australia is a really good example. We've got the old Port Augusta Power Station site. It's not doing anything. It's already fully contaminated. Go and build it down there. There's a heap of solar farms in South Australia about to reach their end of life. It's on the water. You can take the recycled materials, put it directly onto a boat and ship it off to wherever. Very efficient. We've got 2 refineries in South Australia that are getting handouts from the government. Repurpose one of those into a solar panel recycling facility. A lot of the things that they would need are already there. The large industrial machinery, the contaminated sites, the capacity to store large volumes of dirty things, all these sorts of things already exist. Nobody's thinking about this. And it's just, how many times have we said, Katja, we need a national infrastructure and development plan that is actually followed and adhered to? Because apparently we do have a national infrastructure plan. I've just never seen anybody fully think things through. So it's because you'd think, okay, we're going to build this thing. We also need to account for what happens when it's finished. It's crazy.
If we can secure the fuel, which is going to be an issue going forward because of what's happening at the moment, but if they can do transport in Australia, whether it's trucks or whether they've already got the train link and the trucks, then I think it would be better to send them off to South Australia, to you guys, to use those ports already, because otherwise if they build it in Dubbo, it's going to take up more agricultural land, it's going to be more of an environmental impact, and I just don't think we need to be taking up more of our prime agricultural land to more infrastructure projects like that. I think, as you proposed, find somewhere else that's already not being used, that's on the coast, so you can transport it back out. Because apart from some products and some elements, we don't have the infrastructure in Australia to recycle them, to turn them into a lot of other projects. And if they're going back into solar panels, then they need to be shipped back out. That's part of our trade, that's part of our loop, that's part of our export setup. So let's get it from the region.
We don't manufacture much stuff in Australia. Just needs a bit more thinking. It's easy to see the people making these plans are spending someone else's money. Again, where's that accountability? Where's that responsibility for this? I'm the Minister for Infrastructure and I've approved all these big projects. Okay, what happens when they're finished? Not my problem, because I won't be here in 3 years' time, because I'll probably get voted out and change of government. Nobody cares. Nobody can plan for the future. It's really quite frightening. These people are meant to be in charge.
I can see that they're thinking that, there's all these solar projects here, because we've got a lot of solar projects going in around Dubbo, a lot. And I can see that they're like, well, we'll build it where the solar panels are. But it's still probably not the best option, because you're already taking up a lot of agricultural space with the panels. So why not take them to where they're going to be exported and broken down?
Heavy industry does not belong on productive farmland.
Take them to where there's already people looking for employment. We don't have enough people in the regions to probably do that. And we definitely, as you said, don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the schools. We don't have the hospitals. We don't have the childcare centres. We don't have the housing. So let's take it to somewhere where all of that is already set up, like a major centre, and look at the real estate options there for it. Might be a little bit more expensive for them to invest in those properties, in those prime locations, but I think it'll work out better in the long term, both money and financially and transport, because I think by the time they start working out building costs, environmental costs, and then trying to work on the infrastructure to get the employees out here for it, they're better off. It'll work out more having it here than if it wouldn't in Adelaide, even if there's more setup costs.
There is abandoned heavy industry like sites around Australia that are far more fit for this purpose, even when it comes to the storage of these things. Like, and again, people don't understand like the sheer volume. Like, until you see it with your own eyes, you will not understand just how much space a pallet of solar panels can take up. And a solar farm has tens of thousands of panels. It's making someone else's problem the region's problem. We're expected to carry the burden for everybody else in Australia because we're perceived to be not as important. We have to be grateful if they bring industry into our areas. It's just, yeah, crazy.
And with that, we're going to head into the next topic, which was sent to us by a young ag fab. So they've sent us a social tile, which we will pop up on the socials when this episode goes live. And what it is a picture of a sheep. Then the wool is taken off and it's washed. And then the wool is turned into bedding or fashion or a project. And then there's an arrow pointing down and it says same sheep, zero waste. And it's got lip balm, moisturizer, vitamin D3. It says lanolin is so close to human skin oil that your body cannot tell the difference, which is why in a lot of healthcare products and a lot of makeup products, they use lanolin from the sheep's wool in that so that it absorbs and it moisturizes. So the question that was sent through by the young AdFab was, why don't they do this? Like, why is this only a new thing that they're promoting and coming up with as a sustainable option? And my answer from my understanding is this is old. Like, we're bringing this back in.
I remember when I was a kid, you just knew lanolin came from sheep. Wool came from sheep, and then you ate them. Like, we were heavily merinos where I grew up, and Australia was still heavily merino geared. You just knew that the old sheep was multi-purpose. You took his wool for 3 or 4 years, and out of the wool you got the lanolin, and then you could eat it. And that's why Australia was built on the sheep's back. And I think this speaks more to that sort of disconnect from the farming community and the urban people, like, because kids don't know where this stuff comes from anymore. It's not common knowledge. It's not, I don't even think it's in the curriculum. I've never seen it explicitly taught. In the years that I've been doing supervision at School of the Air, we've never explicitly covered what comes from what animal. And it used to be assumed knowledge, like you just used to know, and we don't anymore. People don't understand. Like, when you hear that statistic out of America, there's a shocking number of people think chocolate milk comes from brown cows. I never know whether to believe that or not, but like, people don't understand just how sustainable and how useful livestock are. They're not just for meat. When you look at what a bullock can be broken down to, the collagen, everything that goes into all different types of products, sheep as well, any livestock species goes into that sort of thing. Leather, it's not just, the leather's not just for car seats and couches. It's all different types of things. They're a really, really useful part of the thing, and they take food that we can't eat and country we can't farm and convert it into protein and fibre. And milk. They're a really useful part of the food chain.
I think the important part of the conversation is that there is a lot of big industry companies, including medical and health and wellness space. They cannot make additional money off a natural resource. What they do is they create synthetics, which they can then trademark, and they can make more off synthetics than they can off the natural product. And those synthetics have done a lot of harm to a lot of people's skin and a lot of additional side effects that were never considered. And that is why there is the movement to go back to natural, to go back to the raw product. It's why tallow is taking off at the moment. Lanolin is following back with it because they are natural. They are natural, and our bodies love and crave them because there's no nasties in them, because they are very close to our own body oils, and they create incredible products that we used to use. People used to make all their own beauty products and moisturizers and health stuff at home, and there's the movement going back to it because there's no nasty, like very little nasties in it. To no nasties. Do your research on all your natural products, because there's a lot of companies and big business out there which are marketing under natural, and they've added synthetics and yucky stuff back in. But read your ingredients, go to a small business who's producing them, and because they won't be using synthetics.
But also, if you've never used a particular product before, even if it is an all natural one, just be cautious first, because you never know what you might react to, especially if you've never been exposed to it before. And that goes to everything, because even with lanolin, like, you don't know where that sheet might have been and what it may have come into contact with. Like, I'm thinking things like pollen and those sorts of things that you might have a reaction to that you might not know because you've never touched it before. It's like different types of honey. Sometimes if you might get hay fever, and that's why you eat your local honey, so you don't get hay fever. You sort of build up that tolerance. So again, don't just go hell for leather and rub it in all your very sensitive places or all over your face. Do a bit of testing first, because you should do that with any new product. But yeah, definitely have a look at lanolin. Like, I grew up with it because my granddad was a shearer. Lanolin was everything. Like, that's all we had. Everyone used to scour their own wool. So like the local communities had access to lanolin as well, until they discovered it was really, really good for other stuff. And then they started selling it to other people. But yeah, have a look around. There are some good people out there doing good stuff with it. And the sheep, any livestock species, but the sheep especially, you can make a jumper and a carpet and a blanket out of it. You can make, creams and moisturizers and all these other sorts of things out of the lanolin, just out of its fleece. And then you can eat it. So, yeah, pretty multi-purpose creature.
Animals are pretty amazing, and what agriculture can produce is incredible. If you think about most things that you use in your life, it has a basis in agriculture. And I think when we talk about the urban and rural divide and it getting bigger and bigger at the moment, we're going to see a lot more of this coming back through as questions, because people don't know. It's not common knowledge anymore. They don't have parents or cousins or siblings who farm anymore. At least everyone used to have maybe an uncle or an auntie that used to farm, and we don't have that connection anymore. So looking forward to coming around circle, coming back to agriculture.
We'll be your farm-based auntie. You can ask us questions. And again, it's just really, if you care about the environment, and a lot of people do, and you're big on this culture, the microplastics. I don't care. I'm going to melt when I get cremated. I'll be that full of microplastics. But if you do care about the environment, you know what doesn't shed microplastics when you wash it and put it into our waterways is natural fabrics. So wool, cotton, linen, all those sorts of things that are natural fabrics. They're not like polar fleece. They're not like polyester. They do not shed microplastics, because what they do shed is biodegradable. And it will just degrade in the environment. It won't hang around for thousands of years and build up in the stomachs of seafood and birds and all that sort of stuff.
And if you are after some really good woolen garments, our friend Bridget at Homestead Road has an incredible new line which has dropped, and she has clothing from shirts, jumpers, leggings, socks, hats, you name it. Go and check those out. We'll link those in the show notes below, and we'll share them over on our socials, because natural fibers are amazing. I have jumpers and shirts, and they are incredibly comfortable. You can wear them to run, You can wear them to just live in and walk around in, and you can even dress them up to take them to town.
Bridget sent me one of her T-shirts to try, and I wear it when I travel because it's warm but it's cool. Like, so you don't, like, you're on the plane and you're like, you don't want to be too hot or too cold. But also if I'm traveling and I'm just like sitting around on a plane or whatever and I'm not like sweating heaps, I can wear it for 2 or 3 days and it still doesn't smell because wool has natural antibacterial properties and it's breathable and you don't get that same sort of BO smell. So if you're traveling light and you don't want to pack a heap of stuff and you still want to be comfortable, absolutely recommend Bridget's T-shirts. They are beautiful.
All right, Channel 7, scare tactics or the reality?
Right. Are we going to run out of food, Karcher?
Are we running out of food? That is a good question. I think people are concerned about the drought. They are concerned that we are not going to get the crops off that we have previous seasons, which is true, and that is for both human fodder and livestock fodder. And they are predicting that there may be a reduction in livestock because of that. Reduction in livestock because reduction of fodder equals less food on the market. Are we going to run out? Is it a big threat? Should we be stockpiling? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, don't stockpile. What you might notice is supply chain bottlenecks again. Like, so when they had the bird flu outbreak in Victoria, and a lot of the chicken and egg farms had to cull all their chickens. So you noticed for a long time that the eggs were hard to get. So we didn't run out of eggs, just the cycle of getting them into the shops and those sorts of things was sort of disrupted. And the same thing's likely to happen whenever you have a drought or a fire or a flood or anything that disrupts, you're going to experience those supply chain bottlenecks whilst they find supplies from other regions and transport them into the regions where the impacts have occurred, or they get the wheat to the factory to make the bread. You know, they're the sorts of things that you might notice, and you will notice higher prices, which is a combination of factors. Again, if people can't afford to feed their livestock, if they are doing their forage and feed budgets moving forward, and they think, okay, so I'm not going to be able to feed these animals, I'm going to sell them now and take what I can get for them, you'll find you'll get lower prices in the short term. But the longer that situation goes on and the further red meat or anything has to travel to get onto your shelves or go to the processor or whatever, the higher the price for that is going to be. And then what happens is when you have like supply and demand, when you've got less things to enter into the supply chain, price is going to go up because the demand's still there. So you might see prices go down, especially in the meat department, and then they'll go back up and they'll likely remain high whilst ever we're experiencing supply chain shortages and tightening. Contraction, I think it's called. We need to listen to an economics podcast or something, Karcher, to get our terminology correct. But yeah, we're not going to run out of food. Don't stockpile stuff. You might notice that you can't get the brands that you want when you want them, but that'll be a very short-term thing because one thing Australia is damned good at, and that is growing food. So we export about 70% of what we produce. Yeah. So we're not going to run out, not by any stretch of the imagination. Prices will go up, especially because it's like a perfect storm. We've got drought in large food growing areas in New South Wales, so that means, you know, shortages and contraction of herd sizes and those sorts of things. We've got the excise has just gone back onto the fuel. So fuel prices have gone up. So people are not going to be, you know, running their tractors and spraying and doing all that sort of things as much as they usually do. Strait of Hormuz is open, then it's closed, and it's open, and it's this and it's that and it's everything else. So we don't have the fertilizer that we need to grow those crops. So we're not going to starve to death by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be more expensive, hopefully only for the short term until, you know, because the governments, they've announced that they're going to build a fertiliser plant and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. But those sorts of things all take time to come online. So, yeah, at least they're doing something. But, yeah, we're not going to run any food.
No. I think the way we shop is very different in rural, remote areas to our city counterparts. I do know that some people shop for the day or shop for the week, whereas we tend to shop out here because of accessibility and because if we don't have to go to town for a few days, we don't go downtown for a few days, is that we tend to have some of the long-term shelf storage basics in our pantries. So if you are concerned that your certain brand of cereal or something like that is not going to be as readily available moving forward, then what our grandparents used to do was you have one that you're using and one in the cupboard. And when you ran out of what you were using and you bought the one out of the cupboard, you replaced it. So that you always had a backup for products that you always use that are shelf-stable. So maybe that is something that you might be able to work on going forward. But Australia is an amazing agricultural system. We are great at what we do. And as Gillian said, it's a transport thing from getting it. If you are used to shopping abroad and further afield, then I'm sure this is the time for you to also start looking into your local producers. Who is close to me that is doing meat, not through the major supermarkets, but maybe they're doing box subscriptions, or maybe they're at the local farmers market.
So if you can get like a paddock to plate service or whatever, or wholesalers and those sorts of things, the way we eat meat has changed so dramatically in the past 30 odd years. It used to be that every small town had a butcher shop, and they would source all of their animals locally. And when you went to the butcher shop, you would buy your rump steak or whatever, and you would just get what you got. You didn't complain about the tenderness or the size, because everything was by the kilo. So even if because I remember getting like rump steaks, huge, like one rump steak could feed 3 of us, because mostly people were growing out bullocks till they're like 10 years old and those sorts of things. But nowadays, like everything's like a lot of what you find in the supermarket is lot fed, and it's fed to spec, and so it's plate size, because that's what people have demanded, because the way we live and consume stuff has changed. If we could probably take like a couple of steps back and go, I'll pay a lower price and I won't complain so much about the tenderness or the quality or whatever. It's still going to be safe. It's still going to be good for you. It just won't be that same sort of melt in your mouth thing. You might get a piece of rump steak and it might still be a bit chewy, so you might have to stew it and not eat it as a steak, or you might have to velvet it before you put it in your stir fry, all those sorts of things. So if we could probably take a step back, that'd take a lot of pressure off the supply chain. The same goes for lamb versus mutton. I did not eat lamb until I was a fully grown adult. Didn't even know it existed. Everything we ate was mutton. And again, people don't like the taste of mutton these days because they're used to eating lamb, which is like if you ask my opinion, tastes pretty much like nothing. But yeah, we've gotten too selective and everything is too samey. It's like the odds and sods fruit. The supermarkets have said, the customer demands a perfect apple, so all these odds and sods are going to waste. In the old days, you got what you got. You were pleased to have any sort of fruit because it was a scarcity, and getting it onto your table or getting it into the shops was hard work, and everyone appreciated it. And they're like, my apple's got a tiny black spot on it. Doesn't matter. I'm going to eat it because I don't want to waste it. And now we're wasting so much just because it might have a tiny blemish on the skin. There's still nothing wrong with it. It's just not what the supermarkets say is perfect. We're responsible in a way for a lot of our own supply chain problems because we won't utilise what we grow.
Won't use whole animal. We won't use all the produce. And do you know who I did meet at the Australian Women in Agricultural Conference a couple of weeks ago? I met a lovely lady from South Australia who was the South Australia AgriFutures Rural Women's Award winner, and she is buying those seconds from farmers who cannot sell it through the big food chains. She's dehydrating it and she's turning it into full meals.
Yeah, and she makes the dehydrated snacks and stuff as well, because she's in the Riverland with all the fruit. She used to be called Spiker, and now she's called Woodland Lane or Woodland Pantry or something.
Woodland Pantry.
Yeah, because she does like hiking meals and stuff with the seconds and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but also shelf-stable meals for the elderly, for truckers, for miners. I've actually put an order in to make sure that we've got some out west, because we don't always have power out there, and they're just going to sit in their little food safe container away from all the mices, so that when we are out there or when we end up staying overnight and it's unexpected, that we are able to just pour water. You just need to pour hot water into these bags, and they're full pumpkin risottos, and it's delicious.
Yep. Kelly, that's her name. Yeah, because that's an excellent way. So we'll give her a shout out too on the socials for this episode as well, because that's an incredible way to use up all that sort of stuff. And that shelf stable food is an excellent idea. Because when we were in the windmill contracting camp, we were out there back in the day before we really had car fridges or solar power or anything like that. So our shelf stable food, this is for the old people listening, they will know what this is, was bully beef and craft cheese, shelf stable cheese. It doesn't melt. It just sort of turns into looks like a melted sheet of plastic. But you slap that on a sayo with a bit of bully beef and a heap of butter, and you will survive. You won't enjoy it, but you'll survive. Bunghole cheese is what we used to call it. Because if you ate too much cheese and damper, you would struggle. Not very good for the digestive tract. And I would have killed for a nice bit of shelf-stable risotto or something like that back in those days.
And what's the beef? What's it called?
Bully beef. Corned meat in a tin. I'll have to put it on the socials because no one will know what it is. It's what the soldiers used to eat in the trenches in the First World War, Karcher.
Like Spam?
No, we did have Spam, but it was not quite the same. Spam you can slice up and fry on the hot plate and stuff. Don't get Spam with potato in it though, because that's really gross. And so is bully beef with potato. Bully beef, you open up the can and it's like strings of corned meat. Imagine if you've got a nice piece of corned meat and you've cooked it, and then you take it and you cook it until it falls apart into strands of protein, and then you put it in a can, and then you can it, and it's got a big thing of fat on the top. One day I'll make you some. If you ever come for a visit, I'll serve you bully beef and bunghole cheese on a sayo with melted margarine out of the bottom of the esky. Well, we had it in a butter bag, which is another whole thing, which old people may or may not understand. But yeah, proper pioneer shit is what we were doing. So yeah.
The butter doesn't melt through the bag, just leaving butter solids. Wouldn't it, if it got too hot, wouldn't it turn into a combination of ghee and butter solids?
No. So you have a Hessian bag, right? And you put your butter container. So you put your can of your margarine, because butter doesn't butter separates. So you put your margarine in it stays in the dish in a Hessian bag, and you wet it, and then you hang it in a shady place, and it works like an old fashioned meat safe. It evaporates and keeps it cool. But when it's 45 degrees in the Barkly Tablelands and the Territory, it does not matter how wet or how shady it still turned to oil. And your margarine became cooking oil.
Well, that's what the water bags do, because the water bags are wet, and when you drive along, and they're either...
Yeah, we had water bags, drinking out of a water bag, so and drink off your teeth like this. If you're watching the YouTube, I've got my teeth gritted because the water bag strings otherwise go in your mouth when you're drinking, because they're made of Hessian as well. We were living that 1800s lifestyle when we were in the windmill camp. The only thing we had was motor vehicles and a crane. Everything else, we were just living the dream. Bathing in a bucket, camping in a swag, cooking over an open fire. When people say to me, oh, you must love going camping. Absolutely not. Would rather die.
You've done your time.
I have absolutely done my time. Washing clothes in a copper over an open fire and hanging them up on a barbed wire fence because you don't have any pegs. At least they don't blow away.
Yeah, when we used to do camping and we used to do our big trips, because sometimes we used to go away for a month, sometimes we'd go away for 3 months when we were younger, and we used to get a 44-gallon drum, but the plastic ones with the screw top, and you used to just tie it to your bull bar and then put your clothes in the water and the soap in it, and then while you're going over your corrugations or anything like that, you used to shake the car and it'd wash all your clothes. And when you'd get halfway through the day, you'd dump out the soapy water and you'd put fresh water in it, and off you'd go, and that'd be your rinse cycle.
We were never that high tech. It seemed like everything we had to do involved a fire. We could not stop for 10 minutes without lighting a fire. It was just, I don't know. It was just, yeah, we did some pretty outrageous things, but I survived. And it made me really appreciative of when I finally had a house to live in, even though my kitchen had no doors. So I'm really, really happy with my modern kitchen now. With cupboards with doors and a dishwasher. Lap of luxury.
Absolutely. And now that we've gone on a little bit of a tangent, we've taken you for a ride around Australia's history and some of the bush mechanics that we do out here and different food. No, we won't run out of food. We might just have to eat something that we're not used to or that we don't know the country name for it. But we look forward to seeing you in another episode, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Absolutely Fabulous. If you've been listening along and enjoying all this content, which I assume you have, you've gotten this far, then you might also like Patch's other podcast. It's the Ultimate Farm Wife Podcast. And I'm going to play the intro for you right now. Welcome to the Ultimate Farm Wife Podcast. Moving to the land and becoming integrated with a family farming operation. Whether you're moving to the farm for the first time or whether you're moving back into a family farming operation, we discuss the ins and the outs of all of it. Thank you for listening to the Poledale Podcast. We've enjoyed having you here on the farm with us. For more information, please head over to poledalestudshorthorns.com. Over on the website, you will find anything from the YouTube video links, the bull lots, catalogue information and updates, and how you can best get the Poledale advantage. All our contact details are also over there. Another way of keeping in contact with us, apart from the podcast and the website, is following us over on the socials. We're most active on Facebook, but we also have an Instagram and YouTube page. That's all for tonight. Good night. Mind how you go. We appreciate you being here.